Hello, everyone, and welcome. I want to welcome you to this masterclass. I'm super excited to be talking to you today. Thank you for joining me, whether you're listening to the replay or if you're joining me live here in the studio. I just want to welcome you to this masterclass / episode. Okay. This is a um, something that I do on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, so that I am consistent in my podcasting, which is a great segue to what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about consistency. Consistency. So again, I want to welcome you. My name is Aldreama Harper. I am a podcast launch strategist and online business system specialist. And so this is where I help and assist my clients to really navigate the complexities and the overwhelm of launching and maintaining and growing their podcasts. And also, as an online business system specialist, I help them to streamline their digital operations as well as helping them to implement efficient workflows and leverage tools to enhance productivity and scalability for their online businesses. And so, welcome. So, the skills that you're going to acquire, let me just say this, the skills that you're going to acquire from the master classes and my podcast, anything that you listen to or engage with me on related to podcasting and businesses. That was like a word salad, wasn't it? So, but the skills that you're going to acquire are transferable. Okay. They're transferable to various aspects of your podcasting, way beyond your podcasting, right? And into your business because they're so related, especially if you are leveraging podcasting to support your business and to get discoverability and, to help you to get your voices heard out there and just really leverage this medium of podcasting for your business overall. And so this is going to really be helpful to you in terms of that because you're going to get actionable insights and practical tools that you can apply immediately to launch and grow a podcast. You can also apply this immediately to your business. Okay. Um, and so the steps that we're going to be uh, going through on each podcast and each episode, right, they're foundational building blocks and they help to prepare you for a more successful podcast as well as your business. So they're just interrelated. Okay. And so my call to action for you is always the same. Take notes, but more importantly, take action. Because here's the deal about podcasts, and I know I say this on every episode and in every masterclass, is that podcasting is not just about creating content, right? Podcasting is about strategically positioning yourself in a competitive market. Business is about strategically positioning yourself in a competitive market. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started because today's topic is going to be the importance of consistency in podcasting. Now, the thing about this topic is it's really inspired because I get this question or this comment all the time from especially those who are new to the podcasting space. I get this all the time. I don't know how I'm going to be consistent. How do you create some type of consistency in podcasting? And so, because I get this question all the time, I wanted to just create this episode and this masterclass that will help you and really just kind of drive home the importance of being consistent because really when you think about it, it's like the backbone not only of your podcast, it's the backbone of your business. It's like the thread that weaves together all of the other elements, right? That help you to create a show that is consistent, create cohesive and engaging listening experiences for your audience, right? Because without consistency, your podcast is risking feeling disjointed and confusing, and it's going to lead to listener fatigue, and eventually it will decline in popularity. All of the successful podcasters have been consistent because it's the backbone of a successful podcast, right? And what sets professionals apart from those who consider this a hobby is consistency. Because without consistency, again, your message is going to fall flat, right? And so we're going to talk today about consistent, why this is crucial. And I'm also going to talk, on a few other points, 3 points actually. Okay. We'll get into the first one right now. So I want you to think about your favorite restaurant. Okay. Think about your favorite restaurant. When you walk in, you know what to expect. The same menu, pretty much the same decor, the same service. It's comforting, it's familiar, right? But when that menu changes, when that menu changes or that service changes, especially when it goes in the wrong direction, then uh, you know, there is some inconsistency. You're gonna start losing trust. You're going to start losing trust, and eventually you'll probably stop going, because especially if it's on the decline. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where it's like, I used to go to this restaurant all the time, and of course I'm not going to name any restaurants. But my point is, I've experienced this, and I know that you have. Like my favorite restaurants. Something kind of happened with the recipe, something happened with the service, and it just was on the decline, right? And so I just started to lose trust, and so I stopped going, right? And so the same thing applies to your podcast. Consistency breeds trust and loyalty with your audience. Think of it like a heartbeat. Just like a heartbeat is essential to the body, how to living, right? It keeps the body alive. And so the consistency, in the same way, is vital to your podcast. It keeps your podcast alive, right? Because without it, it's going to flatline. Okay, because it's going to flatline. Your audience will lose interest, and they will stop looking for your podcast because you're inconsistent, or either in your schedule or your topic, or things like that. It's going to flatline, right? Let me give you this example, a quick story about and a very familiar podcaster. In fact, I like to call him the father of podcasting, because this is how one of my first introductions to podcasting, right? John Lee Dumas, he's the founder of Entrepreneur on Fire, but he committed to releasing a new episode every single day, 7 days a week, for 2,000 days straight. Now that's what you call consistency. And of course it paid off, because his podcast, and I don't remember the year that he started his podcast, but I know certainly he has definitely made millions and millions of dollars as a result of just being consistent, right? But it became one of the most popular business podcasts that exists today, right? And so it really pays off to be consistent, right? And when you look at it, when you look at in the scheme of things, when you think about consistency, and releasing podcasts on a consistent basis is going to help you build a massive following. Eventually, it will pay off. Now, not if it's not if it's a bad podcast, right? Of course, there's other things that that's going to help to create that sweet recipe for success. I'll share within my own story. So I've launched 3 podcasts. The first one only had 12 episodes. Okay. Inconsistent, right? It's still out there. I launched my first podcast in 2013, and it only has 12 episodes. The second podcast, however, um, was with my former business partner. We did 400 episodes. Very successful. In fact, we released an episode 5 days a week. Even when I think about that, I was sharing this with someone um, not very long ago. It's like I don't even know how we did that, right? But we had this rhythm, right? We had this rhythm that helped us to create 400 episodes. It's still out there. It's called Wisdom Inspired. And so and I think it just speaks to what motivational speaker Tony Robinson says. Consistency is the foundation of virtue. It's the key to building trust, loyalty, and ultimately a successful podcast, right? I found a great statistic that, or a study by Libsyn. They found that 71% of podcast listeners are more likely to continue listening if it's released on a consistent schedule. The study also found that podcasts that release episodes at least once a week see a 20% increase in engagement compared to those that release less frequently. So consistency is key. I mean, I'm really trying to drive home this point here. Let's move on. So I want to move on to my next point, which is really understanding what consistency is all about, because it's not just about releasing episodes on a regular basis. That is key, right? But it's not just about releasing episodes on a regular basis, on a regular schedule. That's what I want to say, on a regular schedule. It's about maintaining consistency in quality, tone, and style throughout your podcast. That is important. And so, yes, yes, it is definitely important to release on a regular schedule. But without maintaining a consistent quality, tone, and style, then you're still going to lose your audience. So think of consistency like a recipe. Just like a recipe requires the right ingredients, right, and proportions to produce a delicious dish, consistency also requires the right ingredients, such as quality, content, tone, style, to produce a great podcast, right? So when you think about it, but let me give you, so here's a better, this I think this example might be a little bit better. So, well, maybe not. If you're a cook, which I'm not, maybe that one, that example or analogy resonated with you. But if you are maybe you're a musician, okay? Think of consistency like a piano keyboard. You can play all the right notes, but if they're not in the right order, the music doesn't really flow. So you want things to flow. Consistency is about finding the right rhythm and sticking to that rhythm, right? And so I wanted to give those analogies because I think that, in some way, one of those, might resonate with you. So think of, let's take, for example, Gary Vee. Everybody, if you're in this online space and podcasting space, you're probably familiar with Gary Vee. He consistently released high quality content on his podcast, the Gary Vee Audio Experience, while maintaining a busy schedule, right? So you don't even have the excuse about a busy schedule, okay? Because you 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 find a way. But you find a way by creating that rhythm that's going to work for you and your audience. So I love what Stephen Covey says. He says this: the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. And this quote really highlights the importance of prioritizing quality and consistency in your podcast, right? So I in my research, I also found a very interesting, informative statistic that by Podcast Insight, it says 71% of podcasters report that consistency is the most challenging aspect of podcasting. But the study also found that podcasters who prioritize consistency see a significant increase in engagement and listenership, right? So here's the thing, like, consistency not only helps your audience, it helps you. It helps you to find your rhythm. It helps you to find your jam, if you will, right? And I can tell you that when you first start off, you're not really going to know, you're not going to, feel it or um, understand or figure it out until you deploy some consistency in your podcasting. And here's the thing: you find it by doing it. Okay, you find it by figuring it out, right? Because it's not just about releasing episodes on the same day or every week or whatever. It's about creating a cohesive brand and experience that resonates with your audience. So it's for you and it's for them. And it's not about, because many people think this as well. They think consistency means sacrificing quality for quantity, but that is just a myth. I found this story of a podcaster, Dave Jackson. I don't know him, or anything like that. But anyway, I wanted to make sure, because I'm really trying to drive this home. Okay, Dave Jackson was convinced that consistency meant releasing an episode every day, right? Now, what happened was he burnt out quickly and his podcast suffered as a result because he realized that consistency meant finding a schedule that worked for him and his audience, not trying to keep up with some arbitrary standard. And I can so relate to that because even as I gave you the example of, my business partner and I doing 400 episodes, right? That was something that worked for both of us and the audience. They knew when to expect us. They knew that, they knew when to expect us, but they also knew that what to expect is what I'm trying to say, right? Because we were not trying to keep up with some arbitrary standard. We were our goal was to keep up with what we felt like was right for our audience, what was right what for us, and therefore we were able to be consistent in our branding. We were able to show up ready to serve them because it was a live call that we did, and we repurposed that into a podcast. And so, a great author, Neil Gaiman, once said, "The one thing that you have that nobody else has is you, your voice, your mind, your story, your vision. So write and draw and build and play and dance and live as only you can. I think that's a great, great point. Um, think about that quote. I mean, I really want you to absorb that. Get that deep in your spirit, right? Because a lot of people, and even in talking to, my clients, and a lot of people don't understand the power, the uniqueness that exists within them. Nobody has your voice, nobody has your mind, nobody has your story, nobody has your vision. So write and draw and build and play and dance and live as only you can. Okay? So let's move on to our next point, um, because that really, I don't know if that resonated with you, but it definitely resonates with me. And so when I think about, the statistics and all of that, this supports that thought, that quote, right? And before I move on to before I move on to my next point, my point about this is that consistency is about finding what works for you, and again, not keeping up with some arbitrary standard. There was a study that was found that, in Podcast Insights, they found that 59% of podcasters, and this will probably be helpful for you. It was for me. Okay. 59% of podcasters release episodes weekly, while 21% release episodes bi-weekly. And so, whatever you decide, I recommend weekly, because for me, I decided, for the Organizedpreneur podcast, that it would release every week, every Tuesday. That's when I can show up and serve my podcast listeners and my audience on the highest level by releasing those episodes, during, on that consistent basis. And I've been doing that for the past 2 years with this particular podcast. Okay. So my recommendation is weekly. Okay. But if you cannot stick to that, then, find what works for you, because there are some people that do podcasts monthly, right? So anyway, let's move on to my next point, because I just want to, as I begin to come to a close here, um, I want you to think about how can you apply consistency in your podcasting journey? Like, what are some practical applications of consistency in podcasting, right? Well, let me start by saying that it starts with setting clear goals and intentions. Okay? Clear goal. This is how I talk to my clients. What is the goal of your podcast? Right? What do you want your podcast listening audience to do? What is it that you want them to know about the podcast? Like, on this particular episode and in this masterclass, this is all about staying consistent and the importance of being consistent, right? And so again, it starts with clear goals and intentions, and creating, from a practical standpoint, creating a content calendar, and prioritizing quality. Okay. And you're going to do that by setting a realistic schedule. Okay. A realistic schedule. Like I told you before, every Tuesday, that's realistic for me. And I've been sticking with that for the past 2 years. And you want to make sure that you decide on a format and a tone that resonates with your audience, and stick to it. Right. But most importantly, even in all of that, you do want to leave room for refining your craft. And I think that that was the thing that I was thinking about, early on, was that consistency helps you to improve and refine your craft. You get, it also, here's the thing, it also helps to give you more clarity and confidence. That's what consistency does. Okay. So there are so many benefits when it comes to consistency. And so think of consistency like building a house. Like you start with a solid foundation and then you layer upon that each building, each layer building upon the last one. Okay. It's about creating a solid foundation and then continually building on it. It's like a muscle. Okay. I got to give you some more analogies because I really want this thing to stick, right? It's like a muscle that needs to be exercised regularly. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. And so in podcasting, in business, it's like consistency is like exercising that muscle that needs to be exercised on a regular basis to build a loyal listenership, to build a loyal following, or even to build more confidence and clarity, as well as, um, like I said, clarity, confidence, and consistency is going to help you um, be more, it'll help you to be more in alignment, right? And because as you're building that confidence, as you're building that muscle, right, you're going to get even more clarity. So let me say a little bit about that before I move on to my last thing that I want to say, because I want to give you um, this quick example. But con- when you are consistent, you are going to stop with all, and I'm not saying that it's going to just completely stop, because we all have trauma, we all have issues and things like that. But my point is, a lot of what I hear with my clients and with people that I'm serving in the community, about imposter syndrome and things like that, it's going to minimize that, right? It's going to minimize that need to want to be like someone else. Okay. Now, that's all I'm going to say about that. Now I'm going to move on and close out, because I want you to this quick example. And it's not, most of you, let me say this. So most of you have heard of Amy Porterfield. If you're in this online space, you've heard of Amy Porterfield. She built a successful podcast and business. Like, if you just Google her, right, you'll know that she's very successful. And she helps with online courses, things like that. Just Google her. But by consistently releasing high quality episodes and engaging with her audience, see, consistency, right? I'm telling you, it works. She has been able to build a multi-million dollar business. Okay. Um, I love what Zig Ziglar says, and I believe this quote is by Zig Ziglar. You can, look it up, but here's what it says. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great, right? I mean, if nothing else inspires you to take action, this should. You got to start, right? That's the only way you can ensure the potential and the possibilities of being great is starting. Okay. And to me, this should inspire action and encourage you as a podcaster to start prioritizing consistency in your journey. I also found there's another study, excuse me, that Lipson did that says podcasters who release episodes consistently see a 30% increase in downloads compared to those who release episodes sporadically. That part. So I before I close out, let me just I know I said I was going to close out, but I am about to close out, right? So I wanted to make sure that I give you just something practical to take away, at least one thing, to take away that you can start implementing and doing right now, right? Make use of free tools like Google Calendar. Create a schedule. Do your research in terms of your audience. Figure out whether or not it's going to work for you, it's going to work for your audience, and find that sweet spot. And then you can create content while maintaining a consistent quality, tone, and style throughout your podcast. It creates a great recipe for success. And so when you do that, you will be well on your way to building a loyal audience and creating a successful podcast that's going to impact others in a very, very powerful way. So here's my question for you. What resonates with you? What are you going to do to get past that hurdle of inconsistency? And so I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to listen to this episode, implement, the practical strategy that I just said, make use of a calendar, right? Stick to it, research your audience, find a sweet spot, and start to maintain some type of consistency, but start. Okay. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. I hope that this has inspired you in a way to really hone in on your craft if you are looking to launch a podcast. And let's just say you need hand holding, you need some assistance. But if you need something or some help and you're interested in closing the gap between where you are now and where you want to go and how to fill that gap. In other words, maybe you're looking to launch a podcast, or maybe you've already launched and now you're stuck. I have clients in different places, right? And like some are have started a podcast and now they're stuck and so they need some help. I have some that have never started a podcast and they want to launch that because they want something, a medium that helps them to um, support their business, another medium to get their voice out there, right? So if that's you, if any of that describes you, and you want to close the gap between where you are and where you're trying to go and how to fill that gap, I encourage you to book a success strategy call with me. On the call, I'll share options that's available at that time. It's not a sales call, but I will share options that's available at that time. And then if it makes sense for us to work together, we'll discuss how to move forward. It's a real simple call, right? And so all you have to do is to go to bit.ly/pod launch strategy. Okay. This will be in the notes. That link will be in the notes where you can set up an appointment with me to get started. Now, as always, I do like to close with a scripture. And today's scripture is Ephesians 5:1, and this is the NIV version. And it simply says, follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children. Thank you for joining me today. I hope this blesses you, and I hope you've been inspired by what's been shared with you today. And until next time, stay organized and happy podcasting. Have a blessed day.